I got to ask you personally is since you left Christianity behind, um, how has your life been? Do you feel better about yourself or about your life? And just has it been a positive experience?
I would say, in all honesty, there are definite positives and negatives. There can be like the loss of community. And that's a very real thing that happens to a lot of people when they leave faith, is that sort of your, tribe that you were part of. And like, as, evolved creatures, we have social brains, and that's how we survived for, hundreds of thousands of years. And so that can be a painful process, but like, putting yourself back together again after and becoming who I think, you actually truly are without suppressing parts of your personality or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that is very freeing and a very positive experience. And I feel like a sort of openness to the world and to people and to life in general, that there was always the underlying suppression that religious, the Christianity brought. And I don't feel that anymore. And so, good and bad, but the good definitely outweighs the bad, you know.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. the on in your way of thinking now, I'm thinking that you probably think when you pass away and you're no longer here on earth, that probably you think that's probably final. Okay.
Most likely.
And if you do feel that way, has that been difficult to navigate, or is it okay with you?
That has been one of the most difficult parts to navigate for me. Yeah, if I'm being honest, yeah. It's something that I've read a lot of Camus, the philosopher, and I've kind of subscribed to the philosophy of absurdism, that even if there is no universal inherent meaning to reality or to life, the fight itself is worth it, just almost defiantly, just to say I was here. It doesn't matter if it's for, in a cosmological sense, like just a blip of time. I was here, and I'm going to fight and make myself known and live a life that matters, just for the sake of doing it itself. And so that's kind of how because when you grow up in Christianity, at least for me, you have your worldview handed to you. And part of that is, hey, you get to see all the loved ones again after you die, and it's all good. We're not going to talk about, the people that didn't believe in God, that are going to like face conscience, eternal conscience suffering and hell, not to mention all those people, but it's going to be okay for us. Right. And then to have that kind of rug pulled out from under you, it takes just some serious psychological work to face mortality for what it is, without the comfort of religion. And I do think that's one of the, maybe part of the reason why religion pops up all over the world independently, is because it does some powerful things psychologically for humans. And that's not to say that it's true. It's just to say that it soothes the fear of death. There is a level of social cohesion through religious traditions. And so it makes sense that, it was almost like a social technology. And that doesn't make it true, but it doesn't make it completely useless either, especially for prehistoric people that don't have the scientific method and, ACE and doctors and all those things we have now, food supplies and all those things. So I can understand religion from that framework. But yeah, the thought of not existing is still one of those things I struggle with. And, I hear all the kind of way we placate ourselves. It'll be like, before you were born, you were, not suffering. It wasn't anything like, before you were born, it'll be like that after you die. And it's like,
Yeah.
I almost have like a cosmic fear of FOMO, or like cosmic FOMO, the fear of missing out. It's like, I just want to see what happens next. Like, do we reach a technological point where we go and humanity goes across the stars and we inhabit multiple planets? Do we end up self-destructing through religious wars and stupidity? Like, what happens to humanity? And so for me, that's a big part of it too, is I want to see the story unfold past my lifetime. So
I I remember coming to grips with, finality of life with the same, I mean, you might call it a cliche, but it does bring me comfort, is that it's kind of like the same thing of before you were conceived.
Yeah.
You didn't have any concern or worries. You didn't have any fears. You didn't have any anxiety, pain. So how bad could it be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I don't think it is. Within that framework, I think it really is like that, most likely. Like, I don't think I can say with certainty that there's nothing after. I'm very selective of making absolute claims for anything at this point. And I think that's just like intellectual humility at the end of the day. There's just certain things I don't know, but I have no good reason to think there's anything after this life. And
Yeah.
what happens after I die is most likely what happened before I was born. And that was nothing. Subjective experience most likely ceases. But like I said before, it's like fuel for like living a good life as I possibly can, and cherishing the people and relationships I have, and trying to do good for humanity, for the people that come after us. I think that religious people, they tend to throw their hopes on the afterlife, and so they almost have like a climate change, add this, add that, it doesn't matter, Jesus is coming back. And that obviously isn't working out well. So
Yeah.